A painted miniature without a decorated base is like a cake without a pickle or a sandwich without frosting, incomplete. Where any decorated base can really tie a paint job together and add more context to your piece. Here's a couple of simple techniques I like to use when basing my minis. Let's get into it. First things first, take a plain base and a little bit of Aleene's tacky glue. Put a nice squiggle on there like you're putting mustard on a hot dog. Then take the brush you're angriest at the moment and spread the glue all the way out to the edge. Once done, take your favorite brand of sour cream, or construction sand, whichever you prefer, and go ahead and give that base a nice dip in the sand. Press it down. To reiterate, squiggle, brush, press. Give that a chance to dry. The next base is going to start out with coffee grounds. Take a scoop of these grounds and mix them in a 1-to-1 ratio with a mixture of Mod Podge and black paint. Mix that up and then smear it onto your base like you smear cream cheese on a bagel. Make sure you leave some crags and crevices because it'll really make everything pop later. Then once everything is dry, give it another coat of Mod Podge and black paint. This is going to act as both a sealant and a base coat. The first paint job is going to start out with Apple Barrel's Burnt Umber, Nutmeg Brown, and Warm Buff. Starting with the Burnt Umber, cover the entire piece with a base coat, making sure not to put too much paint on so you can leave those details sharp. With the Nutmeg Brown, put a little less paint on your brush, and brush gently, leaving that burnt umber to show in the recesses. Lastly, dip the brush in the Warm Buff and brush most of the paint off on a paper towel, a piece of cardboard, or your cat, and lightly hit the raised edges of the sand. This ties everything together, giving the whole piece a three-dimensional look. The next base is going to be the same sand technique with a different paint job. First, coat the top in white paint. This will make the colors pop. Using Admiral Blue, Turquoise, Caribbean, and White, take the Admiral Blue and do the same thing we did with that Burnt Umber. Get in all the cracks and crevices, being careful not to put on too much. Next, use the Turquoise and go over everything except the recesses of the sand. Then, to add a little more depth, mix the Caribbean with a little bit of white before brushing on even more lightly. Then dry brush in white. And now for the coffee base. Take Apple Barrel's Limeade, Aleene's Tacky Glue, and those two paint brushes that made a pass at your wife at last year's Christmas party. Mix a 50-50 ratio of paint and tacky glue before realizing you forgot to paint the first parts first. Those first parts are going to use pewter gray and antique parchment. No matter what, make sure you don't make a poop joke about the paint dropping out of the bottle. Then load the brush up, brush it off, and brush way too much on the base. Tell yourself it'll all be okay when you dry brush it with the antique parchment, knowing that you'll never be able to unsee it. Then soldier on and ruin your YouTube Shorts clip with overactive autofocus. Now for the fun part. Take the limeade and glue mixture and fill all the crags, going over it 2 or 3 times to give it volume and a silky luster that your grandmother could only dream of. And now comes the part where I shamelessly tell you to like and subscribe because the algorithm says you're more likely to do it if I tell you before the outro. These simple techniques are fundamental skills to branch out from, like using different color schemes to simulate grass and hot coals, or adding decorations like grass tufts or flocking. The beautiful thing about this hobby is that the only limits are your imagination and creativity, and money, and time, space, motivation. At least sand's cheap. Have a good one.